I've heard a lot of people say, trans folks say that when they, especially trans women say when they get married to a woman, maybe these things will go away. And I actually think they exacerbate. Yeah.
Hey everyone, I caught myself another one. Well, I actually had this one before, but now this one came back with another person with them, which is their partner, which is really excited. And I've been wanting to get this interview on the table for a long time, and so we finally found the space to do it. And you all know LaRell, but LaRell brought their partner Valerie on board today, and we're going to have a discussion about their relationship and what happened during the transition and after, and all of those kinds of things. And so before I do move forward, I love that you guys like and you do the most incredible comments. I read them all, and I really just it's helping this channel go crazy on some level. And but that just means a lot to me. It means that we're really doing a lot of work here and bringing these voices that are so important. So respect these people. If you don't like the conversation, that's okay too. But really understand how important it is that people step up to the plate in this day and age when it's hard to sort of speak truth. And so with that, we have LaRell and we have Valerie. And so why don't you two just introduce yourself and we'll move forward.
Yes. So my name's LaRell. I've been on Buck's show before. I'm a detransitioner. Lived for 6 years as a woman, had surgery and everything, and drug my wife through it. And during my initial interview with Buck, we spoke about my wife's experience and decided it would be best to bring her on as well so she could speak for herself.
And I'm Valerie, and I'm Laurel's husband, or Laurel's wife.
Well, you can be whatever you want to be.
Nowadays, like if you look at me, I'm a husband, right? Like this. And I am I'm a highly trauma-informed somatic practitioner and therapist, and work a lot with the body-mind connection, and have a background in sociology, women and ethnic studies, and actually queer and gender studies, wildly enough. So I know, isn't that fascinating? It all comes to play now. I'm like, I guess the universe did have a reason for walking me through this wild path. So yeah, I'm really happy to be here too. I so enjoyed Laurel's interview with you, and have enjoyed watching all your other interviews too. They're so interesting and authentic, and yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, no, first off, thank you so much. Thank you for the work you're doing. It really means a lot to me, the somatic and all of that. It's very, healing. I work for my own self, I work in that space, and it's done wonders for me. And it's really, really, I'm not kidding. It's made me a different person. And so I highly recommend that kind of therapy to people out there who are looking for the next maybe level of therapy. As you probably know, I'm a huge geek, therapy geek, I guess you could say, because without mental health, we are not, I don't care what you do to your body. I don't care what you do and all of this surgery and all that. You are not going to be that person until I keep saying this is a mental health problem, people. This isn't a physical, that comes secondary to
absolutely
what we're doing here. So if I'm going to stop lecturing, but with that, why don't you, I would love for, however you guys want to bring this conversation to the table, but I'd love for you to talk a little bit about maybe the beginning of LaRell's journey and then how you sort of navigated that, Valerie, and then what came from the next steps, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, let's see here. So, it's interesting because when we met, LaRell was pretty damn conservative and I was pretty damn liberal, which was really interesting. He was just walking out of his Mormon faith and I was pretty agnostic. I was reading Eckhart Tolle. I was really into yoga, and coming out of my own evangelical extreme background into atheism, into sort of a kind of spirituality around the time I met LaRell. So it's really interesting, and I think that does play a big portion of the picture into play because I was, in this liberal sort of ideology and really what you might say open-minded, and now what we might call woke culture, which really wasn't a thing 10 years ago, I would say. But no, it's really, really taken off socially in the last 5 years or so. But, I felt like, we came together really wildly and synchronistically and just fell head over heels in love. LaRell literally lived across the U.S. and sold his house and property and moved across the U.S. to be here with me and my 2.5-year-old daughter at the time and to marry me. And yeah, it was really beautiful and wonderful, but we both come from a lot of really traumatic backgrounds. So when two systems come together with their own individual programming and traumas and identities, they collide and bring up all these shadows and aspects of ourselves. So I think that's a big aspect of it. You know, I've heard a lot of people say, trans folks say that when they, especially trans women say when they get married to a woman, maybe these things will go away. And I actually think they exacerbate. Yeah. And
Totally agree.
so, yeah, it's really interesting, like seeing the
Yeah.
threads now in other people's lives. But so it was probably, only about a year into our marriage, if that, less than that, I think, that we watched that Katie Couric documentary. And it's so weird, Buck, because I actually, hindsight looking back, I literally suppressed this memory. Like, this is how painful it was for me to hear this. But I mean, it's wild. I thought that I pulled him out of the closet, but then, like, hindsight over the last year of deconstructing this, I'm like, holy shit, you actually told me. You actually legitimately told me. Right. Isn't that interesting when we were watching this documentary? And I think I just couldn't, reconcile with that. I just wanted a husband, and
Yeah.
I wanted, this life, this normal life, I think. And I think that actually started to create some resent for LaRell, I think, yeah, later
Well,
on.
what did you say to her, Laurel? Did you say I feel this way, or what did you
Yeah,
say?
Well, up until that point, I had let her know that I liked wearing women's clothing at
yeah,
home, and she even bought
that's
me
right.
women's clothing because she
Huh.
knew that I loved it so much.
Mm.
And so she knew that aspect of me, but she didn't quite know that I wanted to be a woman. And
Right.
so while we were sitting there watching the documentary, she paused it and turned to me and
Oh,
asked
yeah.
me, "Is this what you want? Do you want to take female hormones and actually live as a woman?" And all of a sudden, this wave of emotion came over me, and almost a sense of relief, because I was like, finally, this secret I've been holding inside that I didn't know how to tell you. Here's an opportunity, an opening for me to tell you. And so I told her, yes, actually, that is what I want. And we were about to go on a trip to Florida like the
The
next
next
day.
day, literally.
Wow.
And of course, that was an interesting trip, having just dropped that bomb on her.
Yeah, I
But
actually,
how?
I
Yeah.
ended
How?
up developing weird, like, body symptoms, like liver issues, weirdly enough. Like, I literally suppressed it so deep
Yeah.
that I started having these weird liver issues, which I
Yeah.
ended up having a near death experience actually. 8 months later, or 6 months later, when a doctor cut into my liver, severed, and lost all my blood, and all my organs shut down. So that, we just have this kind of wild, so many things, like medical things, and then, we add in psychedelics and trauma therapy and, like, our crazy backgrounds and religious threads, and yeah, it's wild. So yeah, that did happen. And yeah, it's like I couldn't reconcile with it. But we then, after my massive near death experience, we just bought our house and we were working on it. And I just had this, like, ping, like this really interesting ping, to, like, go down and look at LaRell's computer. And when I turned it on, it was like Susan's page or whatever. And he
Yeah.
wrote this excerpt that was like, I would give anything to transition, but, like, my wife won't let me. And I was like, what is happening? I don't even know what you're talking about. Like, again, I think it's because I literally suppressed his initial, like, coming out moment.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, I guess obviously because it was so, like,
Traumatic.
yeah,
That's trauma.
so
That is
traumatic.
actual trauma. And as I watch these documentaries and these things about what
Yes.
they call trans widows, you're literally saying the same
Yeah.
thing that so many of these women are saying. Because
Yeah.
I do think it's shocking to hear
It is.
something
Mm-hmm.
like all of a sudden your partner who's this dude and all of a sudden, okay, maybe he wants to wear women's panties and do it.
Yeah.
That just
Exactly.
doesn't feel weird to me because that's just because I'm a person who's cool with all kinds of fetishes and
Yeah.
things,
And
right?
yeah.
I have no issues with that. But to take it to the level of transition is a whole other
Yeah.
space. So I think you were actually trying to, well, in my opinion, you were trying to sort of rationalize, right,
Absolutely.
what that
Mhm.
means. But it was, and then Laurel's dealing with it on some level, right,
Oh
Laurel?
yeah.
Like, how are you even like? She's not even really like. So yeah. I really, this is really
Yeah.
interesting because so here you are, kind of traumatized by each other, but you're
Yeah.
not having the conversation.
Totally. Yeah, it's great that you, like, kind of brought up to, like, what LaRell was doing at that time, because that actually feeds into a lot of this story, actually,
Yeah.
interestingly enough, because
Yeah.
he was very much, like, drinking a lot at this time. So I was flipping my shit about that.
Yeah.
And so that really adds into all of this, the fear and the he's gonna die and he's gonna be an alcoholic if he doesn't make these changes. That's where, like, the culture and the therapist and, like, this influence kind of grabs me on board with the transition, and I become, like, full force, full fledged, like, let's do this. We have to do this. Let's do this together. And now looking back and watching other people, I actually, to be frank, see a lot of like codependency, like with this, right? It's like actually like a little. It's like not a little. It's a lot of enmeshment, because I feel like union and marriage like matures you. It really, like we were talking about before, our voices amplify each other.
Hmm.
Well, that's what we do as a couple. And if you can kind of keep yourself in like the fires of love and keep refining and healing, you become more and more mature. But obviously, this is a part of our evolution together, and we were not very mature at the time. And so, yeah, it was really,
But is
that
that
was really wild.
maturity? Is that actual maturity? Or I don't necessarily think it is maturity because, for my own opinion, I think it's a schism that's happening. And
Yeah,
of course, there is no way anyone's going to be okay with this. When I transitioned a million years ago, my girlfriends were freaked out. They're like, "What? I'm like women. Like you're looking like a gym queen." I'm just like, and I now back looking at it, right? But you have to, as a trans person or whatever the situation is, you've got to also have some empathy for your partner,
yeah,
LaRell, right? Right. So how did you
yeah.
come around to start having empathy for her, or how did you start navigating this?
I was way too self centered and in my own world and caring too much about what I needed
Yeah.
to really have much empathy for her. And that was what was really sad. And that caused me a lot of resent, which drove a lot of my alcohol use and keeping myself numb to my own feelings that I was too afraid to feel and that I didn't want to feel what she was feeling. I didn't want to acknowledge what she was going through because, like I said, it was a selfish thing for me. And I was just in my own world.
Yeah.
And
But
then
that is the story I hear right
Yeah,
there. It's narcissistic and it
it is.
doesn't need to. Why? Let's talk about that. Why is it narcissistic? I left my girlfriends and I didn't get a girlfriend until I finished my transition. I wasn't with anybody. It's something I tell all young trans people who are transitioning. Don't have a partner. This is a very, very personal space and you cannot
Totally.
drag somebody into this. It's not fair. So that being said, how did you start to I mean, really, it's so profound because I can just see what's happening to you two. You have this
Yeah,
beautiful relationship. LaRell's feeling this way about himself. You're like, what the going on here? There's no communication, right? Drinking. I mean, it's just the scenario is happening all over the place, right?
totally.
So, yeah. So I guess the next, I want to
Yeah,
know,
we
like,
were like,
how?
it's
Yeah.
interesting because in the meantime, there's all these other things happening. Like we were viscerally aware that like our attachment stuff and our childhood traumas were colliding at the same time. So during all
Yes.
this, we're getting training, we're
Yes.
working with coaches. Like I'm deep diving into trauma and somatics. And so it's so interesting because a lot of these trauma informed modalities at the time even were sort of confirming back this reality to us. And then it was also confusing to me because LaRell was so like split. He was like such a loving, connective, kind partner, like always willing to do anything for me all the time. Like the dishes, like LaRell's never just like sat around. He's always doing all these things, helping out. And then on this other hand is like, really, selfish and not thinking about the impact of me or me having to hide like a lot of the impact. I mean, and I'm not a good hider. I'm actually very conflictual, which has actually aided in our evolution. And now I know how
Yeah.
to be more of that, maybe the divine feminine or wise feminine type of confrontation instead of the wild, chaotic,
Mhm.
traumatized me. Um, but yeah, it was just, there was so much going on at the time. And then we ended up, in the hands of gender therapists and we're trying to figure out our relationship at the time. And
Yeah.
one of the things we haven't really talked really publicly about this, but I do feel like it adds in. But we actually decided to open up our marriage at the time, because you were talking about how I think LaRell really felt that. He was like, this is selfish for me to put you through this. And I kind of felt similar, and I'm like, hey, like I am 25, I am a very like open sexual person, and so we did open up our marriage, and I'm really the only one that kind of played in that sphere. LaRell was very focused on himself. And, I think that I'm not a big proponent. I work with couples for opening up a marriage. I think it leads to a lot of disintegration of things. I think it's actually kind of a nightmare. But for us at the time, it was like some sort of like band-aid to help us get through this. And I was allowed like the connection and openness and freedom in myself. And so I think it like kept us married in a lot of ways. And then we closed our marriage like, maybe a year or two after that.
But I think it says a lot. First off, I open relationships don't work. I'm just gonna say it right there. I've
No, they
tried
don't.
it. If you try it, it's just that someone gets jealous, something weird, something happens. I don't care what anybody says. Even the long term relationships I know,
Yeah,
oh, there's always just gross stuff going on there. Like
totally.
it doesn't work. In my opinion, it doesn't work. Now that being said,
No,
I think it is actually kind of awesome that because you needed to get your needs met too, friend.
totally.
If your sexual needs or your even intimacy or you're a straight woman, I would assume on I'm not going to make that up, maybe bisexual, but you know what I mean, like
Yeah,
you're with this dude and you want this attention from him and you're not getting it. I think that is healthy
yeah.
in that scenario. So
Well,
you opened it and then you
yeah,
closed it.
absolutely. And at the time, I mean, I believe frequency and energy attracts frequency and energy. So Laurel had sexual distortion and so did I, and
Yes,
that's just a
yes,
fact about it. And so,
yes,
I wanted to have attention and love and
yes,
connection. And I had my own abandonment issues. And so, that was a part of it too. I just think that we were able to heal and revive and kind of like burn through the ashes and create new versions of ourselves through this
yeah,
process. But yeah, it's very unlikely that that happens. And and it's really destructive. I really am a
oh,
big believer of lifelong monogamy and going deeper and deeper with one person and holding that
me
commitment
too.
because that commitment is like that's what brings you into deeper versions of yourself and makes you a better human being and stronger
Yes,
community member and stronger elder
beautiful.
in the world. And
Oh my God, it's so beautiful that my partner and I, we have such a, because we do this work. We actually
yeah,
do this work as couples and as a couple and as separate people. And all we do is grow. We just
absolutely.
grow. It's like crazy. It's like literally watering a plant that's just like, we weren't doing it, we were like, like
Yeah.
totally, these weird spaces. But that says to me, you have true love because you did on some level. Now, I'm not saying people who do this happens that they divorce or whatever, it's not for everybody and not everybody can stick together in these
Yeah.
situations, but I think specifically with yours, I feel the love between, even sitting there watching the two of you, I actually feel it over the internet. I do. I
Yeah.
see your super strong love for each other. But let's go back to the schism because now here's LaRell dealing. You have an open relationship. Are you starting to feel that you can start taking hormones now, LaRell, or when did that happen?
Yeah,
About the same time, yeah, I imagine.
yeah, around the same time because I
Uh,
recognized that I was going to be taking away from her something vital to a relationship, that
yeah.
sexual intimacy that I was about to take away, and that's what I had no desire to be with anybody else. I didn't want to have anybody else sexually. I just
Wow.
wanted her. But I recognized that that was something so vital to a relationship I was taking from her that I was like, you please go get what you need sexually
Wow.
from someone else because I'm not going to be able to give it to you. And
That's
Yeah.
just beautiful. It really is. It's just actually showing, as narcissistic and selfish as
Yeah.
this kind of situation can be, there's this
Totally.
little opening where you're like, but so were you attracted to women at the time, Laurel, or sexually? How was your sexual
Oh
being?
boy.
What was happening?
I have always been attracted to females, or at least I thought I was. But what happened to me was that I took that attraction that through my upbringing in the Mormon church and things, I had to adapt it. It was not okay. It wasn't safe for me to express any sort of physical attraction towards females, or I would risk
Yeah.
damning myself to a lesser kingdom in heaven the way I was taught. And
Yeah.
so I suppressed that and adapted it and turned it into an attraction toward myself in a way, towards myself being a woman.
Uh,
Kind of like,
AGP.
yeah,
Yeah. And I think honestly, Buck, we've
Yeah.
been talking about this lately, and I think a
Yeah.
lot of most people fit in either that category or like the obsessive, compulsive, eating disorder, body dysmorphic people. And I feel like, I don't know, Laurel said in his last video actually that, transness maybe doesn't even exist at all, that it's a made up term, that
Yeah.
there's actually other umbrellas of things we need to look at. But
Totally.
anyway,
I'm as a 32-year transitioned human being, this helped me a lot, but
Yeah,
I'm not, as you all know, I'm attached to my biology. I know I'm a female. I'm not
totally.
trying to
Yeah.
pull the wool over anyone's eyes. I think because of doing all this work, but the thing is, I don't want people to believe this isn't a mental disorder because it
Oh yeah.
is, and
Yeah.
it 100% is. But in this can on, I'm not cured, whatever that means. What I do is I walk in my disorder happy, if that makes sense. When you have a disorder and you learn to sort of find that space if you need medicine or you need, you know what I mean, therapy, you can walk healthy in your disorder. And
Totally.
that is really a big part of my platform, is saying I'm not trying to tell you I'm anything I'm not. I think LaRell is right on some level. We need to have the bigger discussion around. And also, why can't we talk about AGP? Why can't we talk
Yeah.
about fetishizing ourselves? Why can't we?
Yeah.
But also, don't you both notice where LaRell's coming from tends to be male to female?
Absolutely. We talk about that a lot too. Which,
Why?
it's interesting because I've gone down this rabbit hole of studying biology to the millionth degree and really studying that, because, and now I work with a lot of polarity and polarity within couples. And
Mm-hmm.
I trained in interpersonal neurobiology years ago in couples. But when you really go down and you study the evolution of biology, we've evolutionarily adapted with the wisdom of testosterone or estrogen running our body. We have an evolutionary history tied into our biology. And there's wisdom and there's information and um, there's just so much in there. Like we literally are animals and we do have a million year of evolutionary history written into our biology. And so there's certain sort of like primal wise aspects of ourselves that we've completely lost. And I think this plays into it too, this whole like, concrete jungle medical agenda, disconnected from ourselves, disconnected from our bodies, disconnected from our biology, disconnected from our primal wisdom. All of this is like embedded in this. And that's why I think we're so confused and why culture can kind of spoon drop down these concepts and we'll just and be able to metabolize them in
Yeah,
some distorted
ingest
way.
them. Well, that's why
Yeah.
some of these people who are pushing transhumanism freak me out.
Yeah,
They're
absolutely.
creepy, and they are the male to females who are pushing
Absolutely.
this
Yeah.
transhumanism, which is so. That's why I just want to be detached from the trans community because I'm like,
Yeah.
you guys are a bunch of weirdos. I just want to grow a beard, cut my boobs off, and walk the world like a dude. Like, no big deal. I mean, seriously, no big deal. But now it's all weird. Like,
Yeah.
what's happening?
It's bizarro.
It's
Yeah, that's
bizarre.
what freaks me out about the whole thing in the mental health system and the medical system is they try to convince us that it's possible to be born with a different mind
Yeah.
than the biological body. And that's what
Brilliant.
I professed for many years, that I was born this way. I just have a female inside. And I
Right.
only
That's
look
right.
male on the outside, and this is why I'm justified in doing this and
Yeah.
why I need to do it. I completely separate and detached myself from the fact that my identity was literally formed in my experience growing up, and that's what caused me to develop this perspective.
Yeah,
That's
and
that's
in the
right.
institution, it's so weird, Buck, because at the time they literally just added. This was like, God, I don't know what I was in school during this time,
Yeah.
getting a double major in sociology, women ethnic studies, and they added gender studies and querying studies, which is wild. Like Susan Stryker and like all
Oh.
of these interesting. Right? Yeah. Oh, I know. I know. So it's like so interesting the way that the institution like perfectly curates this like concept, but they leave out all of these other like
Totally.
biologists and information. And
Yep.
so, and I studied culture like on a huge level. Like I'm a systems trained person. And so, what's wild about this, Buck, is that I was pretty woke up to the medical agendas intrinsically. I healed myself of autoimmune diseases. I got off all these medications. Like and so it's like so interesting that somebody like me in this situation. And I think fear is like one of the biggest things because the things I started hearing immediately going back to like the transitioning story was like, okay, like literally it's life or death. Like you have to get your husband's help. You have to put yourself down and aside because this is life or death. Almost like he has like this cancer that I can't resist them getting out or he's going to die. And like, I'm obsessed with this man. He's my husband. He's my life partner. He's my best friend. Like, and I also really enjoyed these feminine qualities of him, especially at the time being raised by such a machismo toxic sort of man.
Yes.
I mean, I've had to make so many amends and understanding with men, with testosterone, with like awesome masculinity and how we need this like powerful, like grounded, directioned masculine force in the world. So this doesn't happen because if we had good men in the world, I don't think, we have good men, but if men were allowed to be masculine in a healthy way, I don't know that this would happen anymore. They
Oh,
would be
that's
like,
such a great point. That's
yeah,
such a great point. I think a lot of it does stem from that and this desire to push away from that because the pressure to be, even me transitioning, the
yes,
pressure for me to be so masculine, right? Or else,
absolutely.
and not to say that I actually don't like being, I could call myself hyper masculine on some level, but at the same time, I didn't lose my femininity, if that makes sense. I cry all the time on all my podcasts, and people would equate that to femininity. And I'm like, it's not. It's literally, I'm like a dude crying right now. And I'm hoping that more men can actually start. This is really, you're saying such powerful things. These are really some of the things that are missing in masculinity. And we're
Yeah.
not talking about this and we're not letting guys just be okay. Also, why is it not okay for a man to maybe want to play around with wearing women's panties? I don't
Absolutely.
really understand why people get so judgmental about. No one
Yeah.
sees the panties.
No.
It's home in your own space. You're having a
Yeah.
good time because we're putting so much pressure on these fetishes, right? I'm actually big on I think fetish is actually healthy when you do it
Absolutely.
in a healthy
Yeah.
way. But we're really, yo, no, you must be trans. And then what happens is I see the anger from these
Yeah.
male to females. They're angry. They hate women and they
Yeah.
want to be you. And we're not even we're not addressing. So I guess what I want to say to you, LaRell, did you start to feel angry about it, or you're such a cool, grounded dude. That's why I just love you. You have such a great, beautiful energy. I just wondering, did you start to get angry or feel resentful
Resentful and angry towards what?
towards Valerie or towards the world, or you weren't getting what you needed, or no one
Yeah,
sees me as a woman? Yeah.
Oh
yes,
gosh.
that plays into, like Valerie mentioned, that the system tells you that it's in a person's best interest. They're going to kill themselves if they
Mm.
don't transition. And I took that. I said the same thing, that I cannot continue living as a man anymore. I have to have this surgery. I told her, if I don't have this surgery, I don't know how I can live on. So it was basically a manipulation
Yes.
tactic that I
Yes.
used. I used that to manipulate her to go along with my selfish desire
Right.
to transition.
Well,
Right.
also being fed this by a bunch of experts. So it's like, yeah, it's just crazy the levels of. I think that there's so much like, oh, poor me injustice, what I call victim consciousness. It permeates this population,
Totally.
and that's why they kind of hate us and what we
And they
say.
need to. We're in the
Yes,
same.
yes,
Totally. We're calling them out. It's because we're calling them out. And
yes,
I swear to God, now I have a lot of trans women friends who are, actual transsexual women. They don't want to take women's space.
yeah,
They know
no,
they're dudes who
yeah,
want to transition. They're super chill
absolutely,
and positive. They're, just like us on some level. We're very truthful about
totally,
who and what we are. They make an
yep,
effort to look like a woman. They would never, blah, blah, blah. That being said, this new generation, I'm telling you, these are AGP, cross-dresser,
totally,
angry, weird. Like,
yeah,
I don't know if you heard of that case in Australia, the tickle versus giggle, where the trans woman wasn't allowed on the woman only app. And they were like, no, you're not a woman. Get out of here. Big deal,
yeah,
right? Oh, she sued and she won. She actually won the case. And I'm like, what is that? Is not a woman. And why can't women? So you see what I'm saying? This never happened in the history of trans as long as I've been
no,
around. Trans women never attacked women the way they are.
no,
It's a weirder, newer,
it's true.
and all these
And
mantras. Yeah.
yeah, it's crazy. I literally have a background studying this stuff on a historical level. And so I think actually that helped me deconstruct it from the inside out. I'm like, I've read all of these 60s, 70s, 80s early
Yes.
trans activists and,
Yes.
Marsha P, right? Marsha P.
Yes. Yes. Marsha P.
Marsha
Johnson.
P.
And
My,
yeah.
all those names, there's
Yeah.
so many names.
So
And,
many
it's
names.
Johnson, Marsha P. Johnson. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I feel like I get that. And yeah, it's like, it's so weird how the cultural flip. I mean,
That was
I
a
think,
cross dresser, by the way. She was a transvestite. He never
yes,
said he was a she. And
absolutely.
they're doing
They
rewriting our history.
absolutely. Yep.
He was a gay man who wanted a cross dress, and nobody cared. And
Same with Indigenous studies. Like I also did like a certificate or under my degree in Indigenous studies,
mm,
and literally like when you go down into like the two-spirited people and stuff, I really think that we're talking about like literally spiritual beings, people that are super deeply tapped in, because the women, have a womb. We have this like portal to
Yeah.
the other dimension. And so it's like if
Yeah.
you have a man who's very connected to like what you would call like the other realms and other worlds, that's what two-spirited is. Like there's nothing to do with transgender in this.
Nothing.
And like a lot of tribal people that aren't allowed in that carry this ancient knowledge are absolutely shut down. That's not kept in. So you're right. Literally our history's been written, like rewritten,
Yep.
and then like refed to us in like a way that supports the current cultural ideology.
Man,
It's crazy. And honestly,
so gross.
my studies helped me so much with this. And I think that's why.
Well, I think that's why also maybe you were even consciously or subconsciously knew on some level what was happening here. But I think that sort of
So
year break you had with your open relationship and you sort
yeah,
of doing your thing and you both working on some level at the time, LaRell, were you also seeing a therapist and dealing with this?
Yeah, yeah. I started seeing a gender therapist
Oh God.
pretty soon
yeah,
after I let her know that this is what I wanted.
yeah.
And
And tell me about that, Jen. I think you probably did in the last interview, but let's just
Oh
so we
boy.
have a little more.
This is a wild story, Buck. You're not
uh,
going to
I
believe what
hate
we're going
those
to tell
gender
you
therapists.
next.
Oh God.
So, this gender therapist is now one of my dearest friends on this planet to this day.
uh,
That's
The
right.
person that signed the literal letter to get my husband castrated medically is literally like one of my best friends. And so, this
Wow.
person, for one, identifies as non binary, as a
Okay.
biological woman
Okay.
who really was, I think, just trying to do the best that they could.
Okay.
They were like, we're Colorado Springs, we're a small community,
Yeah.
and we were seeing these things. And
Yeah.
I think that, and they're not a gender therapist anymore. And
Thank you.
yeah, thank God. But I do think that, and they're very like open-minded and are like, wow, like this is like, there is a lot of things happening and there's a lot of weird things, but it definitely was a weird relational switch for us as Laurel detransitioned. Because let me tell you, you already know, actually, I don't need to tell you, it is so confronting to trans people when a detransitioner comes out to the point where there's such cognitive dissonance, they don't even see them. They
Yep.
don't even think there is any. Like
Nope.
Laurel's a purple spotted elephant. I'm like,
Yep.
Laurel's like a normal. Like this is all the time. This is happening all the time right
That's
now.
right. Daily.
So
Daily.
daily,
That's right. Daily.
constantly.
Tell me about this therapist though. What happened? So you guys became friends, which whatever. So
Later,
that being said, yeah, later on, and so the person is no longer a gender therapist.
No,
And why? Why do you think they're no longer?
I think just probably not because of like the aspect of them not believing in gender therapy, but them just
Okay.
getting burnt out from 15 years of being a therapist. And also, by
Oh.
the way,
Oh.
this person had no trauma informed background, Buck. Zero.
Wow.
You can become a therapist. And so that's why I went non-licensure actually. I went and trained with like, people like Bessel van der Kolk and Gabor Mate and Peter Levine and like Dick Schwartz and Parts. And, I went down all of these avenues to become highly trauma informed and embodiment informed
Yes.
and biologically informed.
Yes.
And even like functional medicine, gut brain access, and how like all of that like creates mental health stuff. And I just went down all these other avenues, energy medicine, all of these things. So,
and this
I
person
definitely-
didn't have any. How do you become a gender therapist?
you literally can just call yourself a gender therapist is the craziest
what
thing.
I'm saying.
And literally that's what these people are doing, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
That lady, there's a really awesome lady. We were on her podcast and she's doing really good work.
Okay.
And for the life of me, again, names. She did the No Way Back. She's you must be some kind of therapist.
I
lady.
think I know who you're talking about.
Stephanie,
If-
yeah.
Stephanie Wynn.
Oh, I
Amazing.
love Stephanie.
Yeah.
I'm friends with. She's
She's
awesome.
amazing.
I
Amazing.
know. Excellent.
So,
You were
yeah.
on her podcast. That's excellent.
Yeah, we were. And, it was like, I feel like somebody like her and these other people that are like, trauma informed and culturally informed. And,
Yep.
I would consider myself one of those people as well. And
I
I
can
think
feel it. I
really,
think you're very knowledgeable and very, I can just see it. And I'm pretty sure it has a lot to do with the fact that you're still together because you
yeah,
did I'm going back to these trans widow women. I couldn't even watch this whole documentary. Like you even said, you had
yeah.
to pause because
That's what I worried. I was like,
I was
no,
getting, I was getting traumatized from it. I'm like, holy, these
Yeah.
women are getting so manipulated by these dudes. I was like, this is so messed up. These guys were doing so much insane stuff to these women, just manipulating them. Oh, it's all your fault, or you're not giving me what I need. And then some of these people had children, and then the
oh,
children were getting sucked into it. And there's this one story where now the dad became the mom, and then
yeah,
you making the kids say mommy Susie and mommy Sally, and I'm like, what? And then, so the kids are getting all sucked into this insanity between,
Yeah.
not
the
between
kids,
those
yeah,
two, but the man, I'm gonna say it, the man
yeah,
wanting to be a woman and
mhm,
traumatizing the whole family. That's why I asked you, Laurel,
yeah,
like the narcissist. I really respect that you are able to even acknowledge that you had
absolutely,
narcissism
Yeah.
yeah,
around that.
Part of my own healing is
yeah,
recognizing my darkness, recognizing that I did that to my wife, that I had that in me to
yeah,
be able to manipulate her for my own selfish desires at the time. I didn't see it as manipulation at the time, of course. I saw it as just me
That's
having
right.
to do this thing to be happy for myself.
right.
That's
And
right.
Which is like why I say it's so similar to addiction.
Oh
Because when you watch these stories of these women,
yeah.
it's the same thing as when their husbands are deeply addicted to porn and alcohol and drugs. And honest to God, here's like we have a lot of understanding and training and compassion, and we love shadow work.
Yeah.
Half Laurel's charts in Scorpio, half mine's in Scorpio. We're both Scorpios. I don't know if you're into
Wow.
astrology, but
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, we go deep
Wow.
with that kind of stuff. We're really into the shadow work, but
Right.
I do believe your darkest dark can be alchemized into your lightest light.
Sure.
And it comes from a reason, right? Like all of these things come from, deep emotional neglect in
Yep.
childhood and distortion and inaccurate mirroring and
Totally.
not having like, capable, mature, wise parents to guide you. And, that's what's really tough about some of these situations, right? Because I'm seeing these people use their children like props. And
I can't.
and I,
It's
yeah,
so
so
insane
hard.
as a parent, and I think you said
Yes.
your
Yeah, we're
parents
parents too.
as
Mhm.
well. I am disgusted at the way
Yeah.
people use their, not even just take the trans off the table, just even in divorces and the
Oh,
way
yeah.
people manipulate. I am the stepdad, and my son's dad is in our family. I'm like really great friends with him, and he comes, we
Yeah.
hang out. We're like a three-way parenting because it's about the kid. I can't come to
Absolutely.
this with a jealousy towards the ex, and I don't really care. It's an ex, right? People don't have maturity around divorce. It's bizarre.
Absolutely.
We're adults. Like, you didn't work out with you guys, but the kid
Yeah.
should never ever be put in a and now the kid is so happy and he has his dad's house and our house, and you know what I mean,
Yep.
everything is like la 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 land.
Yep.
And
Same. We have a same situation.
it says
Same
everything.
situation.
It
It
says
does.
everything about you guys. You care about the child.
Yeah.
Whatever weird is going on between the adults, keep it private and stop.
Yeah.
But wow, the way we are manipulating children more and more these days. And so
Oh,
I do
it's
think a lot of this stuff comes from childhood
It
trauma.
does. I fully believe and see the patterns. Like human beings are like a set of circumstances and patterns and things that occur to us and
Oh,
within
great,
our like really
great,
deep intimate relationships with our
great.
parents and
Yes,
and all of these things inform us and inform like every little bit of who we are and who we become.
yes.
And I think, I say this often, and it's basically what you just said is that our society is pathologically infantilized anyway. So I
Wow,
think that that's a big portion and why, you know, I I talk a lot about, maturity. And I think that's why people divorce a lot because there's a lot of blame and projection and black and white. Honestly, it's child behavior that we're seeing in our culture today. It's like
so
we've
true.
lost maturity and elder culture and connection to ourselves so
Yeah,
much.
because there's a lot of ageism, by the way, and so in the
Absolutely.
trans community, I'm known as Trampa, right? I'm like one of the oldest trannies on the block, right? And no big deal. Like I'm 62. I'm like, hey, I'm here. If you need me, come here. Just like a Trampa is, or a
Yeah.
grandpa is. Like, come if you want to come over and listen to old stories, come over. If not, good for you, kiddo. But the kids, just like the young generation, is like, get out of the way. You're old. You don't know anything. I'm like, what?
Yep.
I, I'm not just for trans, but like the ageism in this country. When you get older, you really see it more than obviously you see it when you're younger. But we need to
Yeah.
pull the reins in on that.
Absolutely.
I mean, live experience is wisdom on some level. I'm
Oh,
not saying I'm the end all be
Yeah.
all, but it is on. Why do other you study cultures and those? Why do other cultures sort of revere their elders, but we don't? Why would
absolutely.
you? Why do you think they're trying to shut down older
Yeah.
voices?
I think they have. I think, like you
They
said,
have.
they are trying to. It has
Yeah.
been so intentional. I think even just starting with the label of like boomer, or like even like
Bam.
feminism, and looking at like men are so dumb, and old people are so dumb, and like
Yeah.
it's like just because somebody has a different opinion, or they've like grown up in a
Yeah.
different world, it's like this super separation. It's black and white. I think we live in a pretty like narcissistic culture and
Yeah.
society, actually.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I
it
agree.
makes sense that a lot of people would kind of be swept into that and inundated and culturally conditioned with that
Yes.
mentality, because it's like the fish is swimming in the water, and the water is poison. Like, what are you going to do? We're
It's
all going to be
so
poisoned.
true. It's social media, number one. I really do believe young people on my kid is not never TikTok. Can I have
Same.
no way can
No.
you have TikTok, dude? Here's a
Yep.
PlayStation.
Yep.
Go for it. Right? Like, what? And I just don't understand parents. Honestly, I'm gonna sound like an old fart right now. I really am. But I'm gonna be like, nope. We should totally say no social media for 18 and under. Literally, it should be a law.
Absolutely.
It's a law not
We
drinking
agree.
alcohol,
Yeah.
Yep.
right?
We
To me,
agree.
it's just as bad as a drug or an alcohol.
It's
Yeah.
such an influence, and it's a mental influence, and that's one thing that I've learned with this whole thing, is that it's all about the mental programming that we
Yes.
received as we were growing up. There's
Yeah.
biology that's underneath, there's who we are as a biological being, but then there's this idea that forms in our mind from influence as we're growing up. And when we
Yes.
bombard our kids with all this social media nonsense, where
Yes.
they are being programmed, and their identities are being programmed, the more they are bombarded by this stuff, and they develop weird ideas. I thought of the story of the young elephants, that there was young elephants brought into a, a village, and they were just running rampant. Didn't They were going crazy, tearing the village up, and then they finally
Killing
got,
each other. They
yeah.
killed all the women. They killed all the children because the elders died off.
Yeah, and then they finally realized that they needed some guidance. They needed some elders, so they brought in some older elephants,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden the young elephants started behaving themselves.
Yeah.
And that's what we
Right.
see in our culture today. The young
Wow.
people are just running rampant
That's
with
right.
their mental programming, thinking that this is what they need to do.
But also,
They-
we're being told that we can't say anything to kids. If you tell a kid they're not trans or they don't have pronouns or if your
Yeah.
pronouns, you're
Yep.
abusive. And I just did the most saddest story on my YouTube channel about a young girl who was trans and she got influenced at school and by her. It was obvious. Didn't they plucked her from her family, even though at 16, even though her parents were calling her by the boy name and they were affirming, CPS
Yeah.
plucked her.
That's
She
it.
ended up killing. She ended up, I can't say it on YouTube, but you know what I mean. She ended up
Yeah.
like, I don't know why you can't say it, but what at 19? And how are we not learning from these stories, right? Like they took her from her family
Yeah.
instead of giving her guidance and letting her just maybe, okay, sorry, you don't get everything you want. Now we just give kids everything they want. Where's the guidance? That is a great story and a great analogy. And I'm telling you, it's going to get worse until
It
we
is.
start to.
Laurel literally has so many people reaching out to him, parents all the time. And Stephanie Wynn, that's her like big group of people
Yes.
is parents, right? And
Yes.
I myself have worked with a couple parents of trans kids as well. And
Great.
I really feel like in general, even in therapy with children, I'm like, actually, we probably need to be working with the adults, like almost always. Like, there's nothing wrong with these children.
That's
It's their
right.
parents Like, why can't their parents hold boundaries and containment? Do their parents know themselves? Do their parents have communication? There's a problem.
No, you're literally I say it all the time. It's not the kid. The parent wants a
Never.
trans kid. We
No.
all know it.
Yes.
I'm like, what? Your kid is not trans. There's no such thing as a trans kid. Are you
Yeah.
insane? And then they go, well,
Yeah.
you were a trans kid, Buck. I was not. I was a
Yeah.
little tomboy who had an amazing childhood. I had an amazing childhood, by the way. I did not have a traumatic childhood. I mean, it happened here and there, but I wasn't one of those kids that were like, you know what I mean? Like, what are you talking about, people? That's you're right. It's literally the adults, and we're not holding these
Yeah.
adults responsible. But at the same time, what you had said earlier about something about we're feeding this message, right? And so people are getting programmed to think these
Yeah.
things. We're reprogramming people to think really
Yes.
weird, and right, like anyone can be trans, or the fact that LaRell just thought that you were trans, was that by going on the internet, do you think? And sort of what I guess the question is, how did you start to think that?
Wow.
That's the interesting thing about my experience, that when I hear people talk about AGPs, and I'm
Yeah.
like, but wait, from the age of 4 years old, I
Literally.
thought I was a girl and that I was
Literally.
just born in
Yes.
the wrong body. I literally thought I was born with a defect,
Yeah.
and
Wow.
I spent my whole life praying to God to please let me wake up in the right body, because I
Yeah.
Yes.
honestly felt like I had this mental condition. Well, I didn't know what it was. I thought I
Okay.
was some sort of freak, and I thought I was the only person on the planet with this condition that made me feel like I was a girl in a boy's body.
Yeah.
And I used to search the internet all the time. Why do I feel like a girl in a boy's body? And I could never find anything until I was in my 20s. And finally, the term transgender popped up. And that was when I realized, oh, I'm not alone. It's actually a thing. You can be born with
Wow.
this. And that's what I thought, that I was born with it.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's what's unique and interesting too about LaRell. Like, because he was born in 1980 in the Northern California mountains, raised
Okay.
Mormon, homeschooled, away
Wow.
from all
Yeah.
culture and society, and literally held in this belief. So by the time he comes to me with this information, and I know and see what I know and see, I'm like, holy, you're the transest trans person on the planet. Okay, of course, that makes
Yeah.
sense. Like,
Yeah.
you literally were sneaking like your mom's nightgowns at 3 years old. Like, what? Okay, that's interesting. No wonder. Like,
Yeah, but
you
that's
know,
interesting to me because
it is.
at the same time, you were also were you being shamed on some level? Did they find out? Why was
Oh,
shame attached to this?
yeah,
Yeah.
massive
Yeah,
shame.
I have this memory of putting my mom's nightgown on and running outside to show her, look, I'm wearing your nightgown. And it felt so amazing and felt right
Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
But then my memory suddenly goes blank. And I remember being shamed and told, that's for
See,
girls, you don't wear that.
Exactly. Which actually feeds a deviant behavior. It suppresses
that's
him.
right.
If he was allowed to actually go through that iteration, God only knows. But we will say too, like, Laurel's mom is like extreme, like antisocial, narcissistic, like
Hmm. Hmm.
extreme, like super extreme. So Laurel was raised by such an extreme woman that hated men, that clearly was deeply traumatized by her husband. And she was so raging and angry towards Laurel's dad that Laurel's dad ended up getting a job where he was gone 6 days a week. So Laurel's alone, home, Mormon in the
There
mountains,
you
being
go.
homeschooled by a woman that hates and despises men, who's
There you
not
go.
feminine herself. And so, I mean, talk about like a raised in the Mormon
Totally.
faith that literally hands out pamphlets and says, hey, like, if you masturbate, you're going to hell. If
Yep.
you express yourself, like, your body isn't for you, it's for procreation.
Yep.
And it's for your partner to touch one day, but don't do it yourself, because I mean, it's just so wild. Like, the
It's
mind
so
body.
insane.
Yeah.
No, but I
Right.
really think like it's the shame. This is the difference. And this is the difference with societal norms. I didn't
Yes.
get shamed as a kid for dressing like a boy because I was a girl. But boys always, I remember even
Absolutely.
today, if a boy dresses like a girl or a man wants to be feminine, oh my God, all hell breaks loose. But when a
Yeah.
chick wants to wear dude's clothes, or I was a little dude when people were like, oh yeah, you're so cool, right? How come
Absolutely.
that
Yeah.
is
My
that?
sister was a tomboy, and she was like really favorited for that, actually. Yeah.
See?
It's like, it's so weird, isn't it? I mean, and I think that's in culture too, how we don't
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
like love
It is.
femininity. We don't really love true masculinity. We're so
Nope.
distorted.
We're
Yeah.
so messed up and screwed up. It's crazy because
Yeah.
that's why I hate it when I see these young boys who maybe want to wear a little dress and then all of a sudden they're trans. I'm like,
I know.
whoa,
I
you are your kid up beyond. And mark my words, I say it all the time. I say it all the time. And I'm smiling because I don't want to cry. But that being said, these little kids who are going to grow up trans and then something, they're going to turn around and hate everyone, their parents, anyone who didn't stop them from doing this, because they're going to wake up one day and they're going to wake
Yeah.
up and they're going to be like, what? I'm not a lady and I'm not, or whatever, right? Like I was actually maybe an effeminate gay man or something, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow, you guys.
That's why I'm
Just
trying to share my story in a way that will speak to them and not drive them away and not offend
thank
them,
you. Thank
because
you.
I want to help them to
Oh,
recognize that that this programming that received was programming, that it's not
Grammy.
real. You weren't born this way.
No.
Mhm.
No, you weren't.
And
I was not born this way. Something happened, but I lived half my life as a female, by the way. So I did really make an effort. And that being said, it's okay. Like if people don't want to believe that this is whatever, but for me, this helped me. It really, I became a very solid person. I have an amazing life. I contribute to society. That's all we should ever want from somebody who
Yeah.
needs to transition, right? I stay in reality. I know who I am. I'm not trying to fool anybody, if that makes sense. This was the medicine for me. And
Absolutely.
it's a very rare thing, as you both know. This is not
Yeah.
common the way they're trying to make it, but it does
Mhm.
exist. But we need to talk about it in a way that's much more healthier, as well as no child can make this insane. This is insane what I on some level. Like I know I'm never going back to be the woman I was, and I'm okay with that. But it's
Yeah.
not fair to do that to a young person and
No.
say, well, they'll always be. No, they're not, because look at even LaRell. You made the choice to do it at, how old were you when you transitioned?
I was 37,
Yeah.
39 when or 38 when I had surgery.
Oh
Mhm.
my God, I can't even
And
believe you
like
had
literally the
surgery.
most trans person I've ever met or known in my whole life. Like talk
Wow.
about fitting the criteria to a T.
That's why you're
Like,
important.
yeah,
Yep.
that's what's so interesting about this.
Yeah.
That's what really flipped my world upside down is like him coming out of this. His transition and his detransition both. I mean, his detransition, because I was aware and awake of so many things at that point, was almost crazier than his transition, actually.
Interesting. Wow. But
It was
wait, I forgot.
transformative.
You had surgery. You had bottom surgery, right,
Yeah.
Laurel?
Uh,
That's the part that really pisses me off. Honestly,
Yeah.
I'm against bottom surgery.
It's
I am.
devastating.
I just don't believe. At first, well, many things,
There's
but I just,
no
what do
there's
they do?
no good situation that comes out of that, Buck,
No.
because it's medical mutilation, it's castration, it's absolutely horrific. Because if we were to look at like the biology and like what's healthy for the body, you
Yes.
can't separate the body and the mind like that. If the mind
Nope.
wants something that is deeply harmful for the body, that's going to create a lot of issues in your body, in your health, in your
That's right.
vitality, in your
Wow.
well-being, there's a problem with, there's something weird going on here.
That is an experiment beyond. The last 3 videos I did on my YouTube channel were all about first 2 transitioning with gender bottom surgery. Both of them died. Both of them died because of the
Oh
surgery.
shit.
No, I'm
Yeah, I
not
actually
kidding.
saw that pop up, but I haven't watched it yet. To be honest,
Be prepared.
we are really disconnected from culture intrinsically. Like at night, like we do our yoga stretches, we meditate, sometimes we read our books, we might watch something very uplifting, and we go to sleep.
Fantastic.
We don't
That's what I
watch
do now. When
we
I
don't
disconnect from this, I
yeah,
read now. I'm all about reading. Reading is,
yeah.
you have
us
to.
too.
You have to, or else you're gonna go insane. Especially when
Your
I do
nervous
these.
system.
Oh my God! So
Everybody's nervous systems are
Laurel,
fucked.
you could have died. You actually could have died from that
Absolutely.
surgery.
Oh,
Did you
yeah.
have complications?
As
Wow.
far as it not turning out the way it was supposed to, and all the dilation problems I had,
Wow.
but well, that's what I talk about a lot on my YouTube channel, is
Yeah.
the fact that I was biologically formed as a male and therefore
Yeah.
dependent upon male
Duh.
hormones to function. And I willingly signed a paper allowing Denver Health in Colorado to cut those parts off that produced the hormones that my male body needed.
Yeah.
And so now I live without those male hormones
That's right.
being produced by my body, and I have to supplement my
Yeah.
body, which is a whole other mess.
Okay.
Well, so do
That is
I.
actually I wanted to talk about, Buck,
Yeah.
because this is
Yeah.
fascinating. Listen to this. We
Yeah.
went and saw a functional nurse practitioner, biological hormone specialist
Ooh.
that works with what are they called? Bioidentical hormones.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
They literally blew my mind because you know what the woman said when we came to see her? Laurel was still presenting as a woman and knowing that he was detransitioning or something. And she
Okay.
said, listen, I'm a functional medicine doctor, and I know what happens when you feed a male body estrogen. It causes cancer. It's not about not wanting, it's not about not liking trans people. I love trans people, but as a doctor, I cannot do harm. And if I'm giving a biological man, the receptor sites can't take it in. It actually goes into the cell and it creates a xenoestrogen that creates cancer. So I'm
Wow.
like, why aren't people talking about this?
What?
So anyway, he's on biological identical hormones for like testosterone, and he's all healthy and not fatigued and not all like weak.
That's
He has
right.
osteoporosis. I think he's shrunk an inch or two.
Oh,
Like
sure.
he was
Oh,
getting
sure.
unhealthy, Buck. Like,
Oh,
and I was
sure.
like freaked out about that. I'm like, why don't you have energy? Like, this is scaring me. We already have a 12 or 8 different,
Hormones.
so that
It's
scares
it
me, you know?
But it's crazy, you guys. It's hormone. I've done this, and I've done my own research because the doctors don't know. And
Oh,
I feel I'm very healthy. Honestly, knock on wood.
oh yeah, you look healthy. You
Somehow
look
I'm
healthy.
healthy, but because I've really used it as a medicine, if that makes sense. I
Absolutely.
never did I abuse my medication, and I've
Yeah,
always looked at it. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do drugs.
yeah.
I really understood the space when these young kids are like slamming testosterone and going, "Oops, guess what? Now I have kidney failure," and I'm like, "You're 16."
Yeah.
And then no one's even saying anything, you guys. And then I swear, I just get, you look at me, I'm going to go insane because they're literally giving these drugs to young kids
I
at Planned Parenthood. And just you
know.
can walk in and slam testosterone. And I'm just thinking, and the same thing, estrogen is a cancer causing.
It
That's
is.
how it is. It's cancer causing. So now you're going to slam some dude with, you know, estrogen as if it's just okay to do. And we're out
Yeah,
of control, you guys. We are
it
out
is.
of
Want to
control.
destroy the body to make the mind happy, and it
Oh
makes no
my God.
sense.
Oh my God. It's and I understand the levels and I do certain
Yep.
supplementation, right? And I take certain byproduct
Yeah.
things to help me understand to
Vitamins
produce
and
it through it. I don't slam it like, steroid it out. And all these kids are like, I want to have big muscles. And I'm like, it doesn't work that way. It's
well,
actually,
and also later in life, it's different. Like if you don't want to have children and you like, it's different later on in life, especially women postmenopausal.
yes,
Like
yes,
your body can receive the testosterone different actually than even
that's
a
right.
biological man can receive estrogen,
That's
and
right.
so it's so wild
It's
and
so
crazy.
wild. And
Yeah.
honestly, and same with me, I had to have an emergency hysterectomy 15 years ago. I almost died. I became septic because
Yep.
they told me, holy dude, what the going on with you? And I'm like, well, I'm trans. And they're like, what's that? And I'm like, and they're like, your uterus and your cervix fused together. Because and I kept having pain and no doctor could diagnose it because they're still, these kids are writing me, Grandpa, I have this pain. I go, it's atrophy. I can
Yeah.
literally diagnose it's atrophy. Go
Oh
to your
yeah.
doctor, tell them, oh, my doctor didn't even think about looking for atrophy. And I'm like,
Exactly.
you're giving 16-year-old girls, my God, you guys,
Well,
so
it's sad because for women's health too, it's like, I mean, I think we're
what?
so disconnected from our sex anyway, like our pelvic
That's
floor
right.
health, our body, like we
That's
separate
right.
ourselves out anyway. So
Yes.
we don't have a holistic society. Medicine isn't
No.
integrative, it's not holistic, and that's like a huge
Money.
problem. Money?
Money. Let's just be honest here, you guys. You and I both
Absolutely.
know this is a money making machine. We are
It
just a
is.
byproduct. None of these doctors
Absolutely.
are being held accountable for these
No,
disgusting surgeries that they're doing to
no,
people, acting as if you
so
can make a
sad.
man a woman and a woman a man. The penis surgery doesn't, at least you got something that could be sort of, the penis surgery, dude, is like insane. Like what? They rip your arm off and take it from here and like literally mold
Yeah.
this thing. I'm like, what? It's a penis. God, you
Yeah,
guys.
it's devastating. I feel like Laurel got pretty lucky because, you know, what he's left with is like, kind of like a nub, a nice little
Wow.
nub that has lots of sexual
Wow.
pleasure and we
Do
have
you have
lots of
feeling?
sexual
Oh no. So you don't have any
Oh
feeling
yeah.
there at all? Oh, you
tons.
do.
A
Oh,
Yeah.
lot.
That's the
fantastic.
pleasure.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm so happy about that. Makes me happy. I mean, because
yeah,
I really do believe in sex and I believe
yeah,
intimacy does have
yeah,
to have some sex, involved in it. And that's why when you start
absolutely.
giving
It's
kids
so
puberty
important.
blockers, right, you're giving
Mm.
kids puberty blockers that are literally taking away even their own opportunity to have any sexual function.
It's so sad.
What?
Or even like, Buck, what's interesting too is I work a lot with women and women's hormones and womb work. And
Great.
actually on Stephanie Wynn's podcast recently, she had a girl on there that at 12 years old was giving hormonal birth control and anxiety medications, and it made her dysphoric. And this happens all the fucking time because birth control changes your hormones, it changes your biology, it changes who you're attracted to, it takes away your
Yeah.
sex drive before it even develops. And then
Oh
guess
my
what? So, honestly, there's a documentary called The Business of Birth Control. There's another one called The Business of Being Born, and it talks a lot of this gross medical like
God. Oh, great.
model of harm. And yeah, anyway, like that's another thing too. Like it's something I haven't thought about a whole lot till recently. I mean, I see women that have been on birth control for 10 years and they're like anxious and not themselves
Yeah,
and
totally.
disconnected from their body and their
Yep.
wombs and their vaginas and
Yep.
their
Yep.
all of it.
Yep.
And so, and I do work with that, like getting off
Great.
hormonal birth control, connecting back with your body, tantra, breath work. I mean, I do all of
Thank
these
you.
somatic things.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
And so this is so wild too. Think about even hormonal contraceptive birth control and how that's creating actually a bunch of trans men that are women that never got to sexually develop. Wild time.
Oh my God, I swear to
Yeah,
God, it's transhumanism.
I
We are
know. I know.
connected to, I hate Big Pharma. I don't know if you know that about me. I'm also anti Big Pharma.
Me too.
They're the
Same.
ones, they're created this. They're the ones who are making us all crazy and
Yeah.
insane and,
I
and
think it's
addicted.
intentional. Yep. I think it's all very intentional, all of this. Like,
All of it. That's why they don't like you. They don't like
no.
therapists like you or people like you
No.
who can literally say what you're saying. And that's why they
No.
don't like me when I'm like, hold up, wait a minute. There is no such thing as you can't be. I'm not a man. I am not a man, people. Like, hello, I'm still a woman. I don't look that way. I get it. I want you to call me he. It's all good. But reality
Yeah.
really is the situation here. And that's why they hate me because I'm like, no, you can't
Yeah.
become that what you want. And this is also, as you know, this is a last resort. Really, you've got to try
Yeah.
everything you can. And if it still doesn't
Absolutely.
work, you can take an adult down this road, and many
Yeah.
times it will work for them. If they're healthy in their mental space, they can get it and they can move forward. I never want people to think this isn't available to an
Yeah.
adult person who's done a lot of work on themselves because this is only a last resort. You should never, they flip the cards, if that makes sense, right? Now it's the
Mhm.
first resort.
It's
What?
crazy. I'm like, why is it that people can't express, like you said, outside of gender norms? Like 200 years ago, we didn't even have the medicine to do
Yeah,
this. Like,
that's right.
why is it that we can't like express these human
Money,
aspects of ourselves?
money. How did you get your surgery, Laurel? Was it paid by if it's too personal, that's okay. But I was wondering, did
Oh, yeah.
insurance
Oh,
or
yeah, that's a good one to
Insurance,
talk about. Good old Kaiser.
Kaiser
I call them the
Permanente.
Kaiser?
McDonald's. They're the McDonald's of doctors. Yeah.
They're being sued by Chloe Cole, by the way, and a bunch of
Oh,
other people. Yeah,
You
Kaiser's
should get
getting
on
sued.
that.
yeah.
You
Maybe
should
you
get.
should.
Oh no, I'm not kidding. I should
Guys,
connect
move
you to this
forward.
lawsuit.
Do. Please do.
I will. I'll
I
totally
don't
connect you.
like the system at all. I don't like to interface with it. I think it's just, but
Disgusting.
honestly, there's got to be enough people. I know about social movements. It's what I studied, power
Yeah,
elite theory. That's what my thesis is written in. So I do know you
brilliant.
do need a certain amount of people and
That's
numbers to
right.
come forward
That's
to
right.
be like, actually,
That's
this is
right.
my experience.
I'll
Because
get you
I think
connected
it's
to the
not.
lawyers and to the whole space because I'm all. We have to
That's
sue
cool.
them. All these doctors need to be held accountable. This one kid who had his vagina done, and it was a nightmare from the get go. I think he was 19 when he got his vagina. Can you imagine? 19. He was majorly
Wow.
autistic, and by 23,
Oh,
he because he couldn't take it anymore, and he was in constant pain from the beginning. He said his colon was falling out. I'm like, of his butt. I'm like, wait, what? My God, dude. And then yeah,
collapse.
he couldn't handle it. And he named all the doctors. And he said, my last dying wish here is that these doctors get held accountable. And they're still performing, the doctors are still performing these surgeries.
It's
Yeah.
sick. I think Bucket's like some sort of fucking white savior complex. Like,
Brilliant.
look, I can give you everything you want. It's like, honest to
Brilliant.
God, you want to talk about narcissism?
Oh my God, totally.
Doctors,
Doctors.
if you have the pathology that actually makes you want to become that kind of a surgeon, you're sick to begin
You're a
with.
weirdo. You're a total weirdo,
Like,
narcissist weirdo. I can make you a woman. Blah. Like now they're doing
God,
nullification. They're doing nullification surgery where they can give you a Barbie bump. And so you're not, and no nipples. No
not
nipples.
what?
I'm not kidding. It's called nullification surgery. There's so many young kids doing no nipples. It's crazy, you guys. So they have
Ew.
no nipples and then they get no vagina and no penis and they just have a hole there. I'm like, how is that legal?
Non-binary to a whole new level.
It's a whole new, that's trans to your face, Valerie. It's actually, I know I'm laughing, but I'm not laughing. I'm like,
No, all you can do is laugh because it's like
I'm
so
just,
horrific.
wait.
Also, like I had this thought in my head a minute ago. I was like, remember like the crazy like almanacs like 20 years ago that was like the crazy freak people, and it's like, look, you
Yes,
got inserts here, and like this was so wild that it was like
that's right.
Ripley's Believe It or Not, and now it's
That's
just
right.
like everywhere.
Everywhere. And like doctors talk about it. This one nullification doctor in Oregon, of course, he's just like, oh, he's all talking about it like it's literally normal. And we're just all with our mouths dropping to the floor, like, we've got to stop this guy. He's a mad scientist.
Yeah,
He's literally a mad
yeah,
like,
literally.
so
What
so I wanna did you have something to say, Laurel?
I was just going to say what's crazy about that is people like myself didn't have the wherewithal to understand that in the future we were going to deeply regret doing this. And that's the
Brilliant.
problem with the whole movement is
Brilliant.
we forget that we are growing, evolving beings that are going to continue
right.
learning as we grow older.
That's
And what if we learn at some point that we didn't want that, but we've made permanent changes to our body?
Yeah. And you know,
Because
one of the
it
things that's like you're developmentally stunted a lot, like, or there's
that's
weird
right.
like different things going on, like neurodiversity, like you said.
Yep,
Neurodiversity and transness are woven in a lot, and
that's right.
being developmentally stunted or highly traumatized
That's right.
is like linked in with that too. And yeah, we
With
don't look at
trauma.
those
We're not
factors.
talking about the trauma. For sure, my
No.
stuff is related to trauma, and for sure, my stuff was related to I don't want to be a chick because I had all kinds of weird that happened to me, and I
Yeah.
was in the modeling industry and all of it. So, 100%, I will never deny that. But I did do a lot of therapy around that. That being, I feel like I'm trying to talk everybody into I'm okay. You know what I mean? At the same time, what I'm trying to say is mental health is the number one. I was to ask you, Laurel, what was the time period that you started to you got your bottom surgery?
I started hormones in early 2017, I think. I
Uh-huh.
think it was like April 2017. And then at the time, the requirement was that I live full time as a woman for 2 years before I could have surgery, which I thought was ludicrous at the time. I thought, this is
Totally.
me right now. I need the surgery today. But I went ahead and lived for 2 years taking the hormones and then
Yeah.
had surgery July 9th, 2019.
So 2
So
years.
2 years,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it was crazy because all those like
Disgusting.
gatekeeping things are completely gone now.
I know.
You
I
know,
know.
and like it is, I think that does present challenges, especially for like, I think that would keep some trans women from having surgery if they had to live 2 years full. Because let me tell you, that's no easy thing to do in
That's right.
society.
That's
Like you
right.
said, it's not really accepted that a man walks around wearing a dress, and that's what it is. It's a man
It's
walking around wearing a dress.
that's
And
right. That's
which should
right.
be okay and fine, but it
That's
is hard.
oh my God. I would hate to actually I feel for man to female. I feel for them. It's a whole different arena. And if you notice, this whole fight with trans kids, it's all male to females who are pushing trans kids. Yet it's all female to males who are
Yeah.
the trans kids. It's
Mhm.
so ridiculously it's like just it's like we live in like some Orwellian space.
We
And
do.
like yeah,
We
we
do.
we actually do. You're right. It's not even like we do. It's like we actually do.
It's actually here now, right now.
We are actually in it. But I wanted to ask before we go, tell me a little bit about the repairing of your relationship and how that came to be, if you could.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Well, maybe just like in a sort of so you both were going to therapy, you did a thing, and then what was the and then Laurel, did you decide that you wanted to detransition, and was that sort of the beginning of the sort of better connection between you two?
Yes. because what we've learned is how important biology is and the biological polarity in relationship. Even in same-sex couples, there
Yeah.
must be a polarity for it to function right.
Yes.
Totally.
And I
Right.
was
That's
trying to be
right.
the woman,
Yeah.
and so Valerie could not be her feminine self. She had to step up as the masculine. I couldn't even make phone calls and things because I hated my voice on the phone. She had to take a lot of the typically masculine roles. Not, but yeah, she had to
Yeah.
take on
Yeah.
a lot of that part in our
Yeah.
relationship, and it totally confused things, and it caused our relationship to suffer so bad. So when I detransitioned and was able to love myself as a man for the first time in my life and stepped up as the masculine part of the relationship, all of a sudden our
Wow.
relationship started to fall back into the proper polarity and alignment.
There you
And
go.
Yeah.
and as such, we've become so much closer than we've ever
Wow.
been. We we
Wow.
feel so much
Wow.
healthier and far better place.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's almost like we
Because
became like girlfriends and friends during that
yeah.
period of time. And like
Yeah.
it was it was okay, we had, I mean, it was amazing. We still had so much love. We still radiated love together. We did.
Mhm.
But I feel like there was like this layer of, how like when you're not truly vulnerable with somebody and your heart isn't truly opened, there's like still
Yes.
like these little things that you're holding back, and you don't
Yes.
feel that like energy flowing, and especially sexually. And to be honest,
Mhm.
we did do an MDMA journey towards the beginning of this, and we were able to. And I love psychedelics, just
It's
so you know.
really great stuff. I agree.
They're the best of the best. I mean, honestly, used responsibly,
A
and
hundred
you
percent.
have integration and you
Yes.
have safety involved. But
Yes.
to be able to like feel the what we call the us and the not us, the program and the truth of us,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
let down the walls and the conditioning and the
That's right.
programming.
That's
And
right.
like we've been through hell and back together, and we've triggered the fat of each other, and we've been in chaos and turmoil. And
Yeah.
so really it's been an alchemy of like the 9 years of our relationship. This last year has like
Yeah.
settled into place this like incredibly beautiful foundation, with like also this incredible like sexual energy and connection, and like
Yeah.
polarity role and maturity, and honestly truth. Like I could
Yeah.
feel, I was like, oh my God, there were so many aspects of her life that weren't actually authentic. Like I was having to put on this hat that it wasn't actually mine. Like I could do it. I could strengthen those masculine aspects of myself. It was
Hmm.
pretty good for me because I didn't have a lot of the confidence to do those things myself, and I grew in areas, but it wasn't authentic to my authentic
Of course.
fingerprint, my soul, my energy, like who I am in this lifetime was really impeded. Like my health has gotten better. Like the more embodied and authentic you live to yourself, the more radiant
Right.
and vibrant and alive you are.
That's right. No, wow. That is beautiful. I'm big on psychedelics used responsibly that
Yeah.
way. They're not drugs. It's literally
No.
an actual an experience that can open what you said, walls. It helps because I think when we're conscious in this like dimension here, these walls are just there and you
They
don't
are.
even realize how deep the that it can go until you actually are in a very respectful space. And I think that did on it did wonders for me. I'm
Yeah.
sober, but I have done those things and
Yeah.
they have helped me on and again, not for everybody. No way.
Yeah.
I'm not even saying that, but I'm saying if you're ever interested, also, can I put your guys' information so people can contact you if that
Yeah.
is that
Absolutely.
Yeah.
possible? Because I
Yeah.
think you're going to help. But I also want to say this. LaRell's special, and so are you. And that being said, a lot of that male to females don't have the same sort of deep introspection. Is that what I'm trying to say there? Right?
It's
Or
true. We
Yeah.
willing
agree
to
with
have
that.
that. Because again, I watch this film and I deal with these crazy male to females who just attack me constantly. They just seem so angry at the world. And think if you don't give them what they want, they're just going to turn into a 2-year-old. And
Yeah.
I just never
Because
really
they have testosterone in them, actually. And
something
that's, yeah,
something they have so much trauma, it's
trauma.
insane that it's literally pouring out of them and nothing can be done. But I think there might be some couples like you who could benefit from you, as well
Yeah.
as even if they don't, one of them more, I think the woman is more traumatized than the
Yes.
male at this point,
Yeah.
can really benefit from hearing your story and start working on
Yeah.
themselves. I think we're forgetting that if we teach them how to work on their own,
Yes.
they can sort of let go of
Absolutely.
that toxic person
Yeah.
in their life, right?
and or create a situation where the projection shifts and that person has to look at themselves. So it's interesting that you're talking about this because we created something that I'm just starting to put into place called the Forgotten Partners Sanctuary. And a lot of
Oh,
that is, and the women I've worked with in this situation, it's kind of turning away the codependency behaviors, looking back at yourself, reclaiming yourself, revitalizing yourself.
bam.
And it's interesting because when you don't take the bait and you don't allow somebody to project onto you, they have to look at themselves.
That's
And
right.
women are really good. We're watery and we're good. We're social fillers. We're
Yeah,
biologically wired to like keep connection and
yeah,
peace, which
yeah.
is lovely. But when we recognize that actually that's keeping our partner from growing because we're wanting to help alleviate the pain and
Mm,
make it, we're actually doing a disservice. We're actually feeding into the
that's
injury
right.
and the trauma. And so, if
Wow.
I've seen where women can pull this back and come into their feminine energy and come
Yeah,
into their rightfulness and
yeah.
reclaim themselves and heal themselves and their codependency and the way they feed into these behaviors,
Great.
then a lot of times the partner doesn't have as much to project onto them and they can
That's right.
sometimes heal or change, just like addiction, Buck. It's so similar to
Yes.
addiction.
It is
Yeah,
100%. I believe there's lots of parallels here,
there is.
but we're
Yeah,
not giving these women the tools, and that's why I think you
no,
two are so special because you can give people the tools to
yeah,
get out of this. I don't think this is going to last forever. I think this is just a part of what's happening right now, and I think people are waking up to it. And I
yeah.
think we need to empower the women. I'm pissed off, as you can see. I'm pissed off at these men doing this to women. I have a real
Yes.
soft spot in my heart for women because I am one, and so I think that makes sense. I mean, if I was sitting in a coffee shop and saying that, people would be like, "What? You're a nut." But you understand? I just have this. I just see women being abused now. I just see it on a level that's upsetting me. I can't handle it anymore, and I'm like, we need
So
to give them tools.
so many trans women like myself felt like we belonged in women's spaces, and of course that makes the women that are there feel uncomfortable because
That's
they
right.
want to feel safe to be there
That's
as a
right.
woman. But now
Thank
there's
you.
this man who's dressed as a woman who's in my space, and
Totally.
I just thought, well, I am a woman, I belong in your space.
Yeah.
But that wasn't right of me. That was
Oh,
Thank you.
yeah. That's something
Thank
I
you.
think that's a really good thing to like maybe even like finish with or to put
Yeah.
in there. Here's the thing, Buck, that really changed for us too is like there has to be repair. And Laurel took
Right.
the lead to like repair these things and to like say, no, this isn't right. This wasn't okay. This was delusional of me to like want myself and to
Yeah.
take your feminine pull. So when he came back out to me, like a lot of that repair was done. And it was interesting because for me, it's like, I don't know what's real now. Are you going to go back? And
Right.
he was like very consistent and very stable with this like healing
Yeah.
and masculine repair work and like reclaiming himself. Just like I think an addiction recovery or when there's an
That's
affair,
right.
like there is repairs and amends and changed behavior that needs to happen, right? And
Yes.
so, and that's
Yes.
really, and I mean, God, if a marriage, everybody up and does crazy things, and you always
Totally.
are going to have to repair and grow in ways. But the fact is if you don't take that accountability, that responsibility, and
Mm-mm.
do the
Mm-mm.
actual work to repair, there is no safety, there is no marriage, there
Mm-mm.
is no healthiness in our society. And so, I really do admire, and I've seen there's other awesome people. Like I really love Call Me Sam. I don't know if you know his account, but
Mm.
he's really
Mm-mm.
like
Mm.
a sweet spiritual
Cool.
UK man that has
Great.
had a really interesting journey. And
Great.
there's a
I'll
lot
look
of
it up.
self acknowledgement and acknowledgement of the narcissism and the addiction and the pain and the
Great.
suffering that was put onto everyone, and then making the repair too. That's important.
Well, that's giving them the tools, right? Like with sobriety. If it wasn't for AA, I wouldn't have been sober for so long. It really did give me
Yeah.
the tools early on. And we need to make
Yes.
programs. We actually need to make programs
Absolutely.
for these men because I also do think they're suffering. I'm not,
Yeah, they
not
are.
disconnected from their suffering in any way, shape, or form. I'm just so disgusted by the narcissism. It's actually
Yeah,
insane to me. And the
I know.
misogyny is like out of like, control. And I'm like, everyone's
Yeah.
blaming women. I'm like, wait a minute here. So I get it, but I do think we need to give and creating these platforms like you're doing and really speaking out, because you don't have to do this, by the way, but you are. And it says a lot about you both. And it says a lot about your relationship. And it says a lot about that you clearly want to share your experience to help others not ever get into these spaces, because it's not healthy. We're not doing a service to anybody, nobody,
No.
in any way,
Yeah.
shape, or form. Nope, I don't
we,
believe
we
so.
both
Um,
we both
yeah,
have a very deep love for our fellow humans, and it's not out of
thank you.
hatred. We're not hating trans people. We
Thank you.
love
Nope.
anybody who identifies as trans. We just don't
Yep.
want you to have regrets like I do.
Yeah.
That's right. That's why I love you. That's totally why I love you, because you're right. You don't hate me, and you don't think that just doesn't exist. You're showing this experience, and you know this experience exists out there for others. And that shows your
Yeah.
huge, awesome hearts, both of you, that you're willing, because a lot of people wouldn't share their experience. They don't feel comfortable doing that. It takes a lot to share experiences like so personal of you too.
Yeah.
It does. It really does, to share yourself out on the internet, where people are going to be like, "Oh, go F yourself." And then they're going to say, "Oh, you were never trans." Okay, you're right. I wasn't. So how did I get put into that? Right? And why did they give me a vagina? They should have never. It's so disgusting. I can't even believe it. But you guys are super awesome, beautiful people. I'll put all your information here. People can contact you. And I just want to say thank you so much for joining me today. It means a lot to me that we still have these connections and these conversations. They do. They change the world, and they help. And we need to get back to a reality-based world, and not transhumanism, AI, everything's fake. It's so gross. So thanks everybody for watching. I'll see you Wednesday on the live. When like this, please make lots of awesome comments like you always do. And because they'll come back if you do that. And if you don't, they won't. But other than that, I'll see you guys all on the next one. And thank you so much.